Saturday coming up. And of course, we have Raseku Tafari, Ani's family now, but we're still going to tell you a little bit about him. Caribbean-born African man, currently residing in Chicago, in Illinois. Yeah, in Chicago. Am I correct? Chicago, Illinois. Well, one of them. He's the CEO of Frontline Distribution International, a Pan-African and Rastafari-owned publishing and distribution company. Frontline Books is the largest book publisher globally of Rastafari materials, including the autobiography of Emperor Haile Selassie, first volumes 1 and 2. Raseku is a trained social scientist specializing in labor relations and international studies. And of course, you know he's ready for the liberation, in celebration of Africa Liberation Day coming up. And we celebrate the whole month, as they say, Africa Day. Greetings, my brother, Raseku. I know you're going to unmute your mic, and you're on and up. And
are you hearing me?
Yes, I'm hearing you.
Are you hearing me now?
Yes, I'm hearing you loud and clear.
Wonderful.
Greetings. How are you doing?
Wonderful.
Oh, great.
I'm giving thanks. to be alive, to be in the month of African liberation. I still call it African liberation.
Me too.
Because we are still to be liberated. Mm-hmm. All of Africa is still to be liberated. So I still call it ALD, African Liberation Day.
Right. And on that note, I know you've mentioned it before, but on that note, maybe you want to just go into a little bit about the change from the African Liberation Day to Africa Day now. And I'm still in African Liberation Day. I mean month. I still say that.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Well, the change came along when the African Union changed the name from the African OAU, Organization of African Unity.
Yes.
And I think that was going through a transition period when Muammar Gaddafi, Colonel Muammar Gaddafi, who was the chairman of Libya, president of Libya, he was given the seat to chair the Organization of African Union, and he had planned to pump a lot of money into the African Union for a satellite and so on. Mm-hmm. And I think they had they made a decision during that time to change it from the Organization of African Unity to African Union.
Right.
And that's how the name came into place.
Right. And so it's now acknowledged as Africa Day. And
African Day.
Yeah, African Day.
Yes.
And you and I are the same persuasion that, listen, we are still saying African Liberation Day, month, whatever you want to call it, because we recognize that there's not true liberation. So we still have to acknowledge that aspect of it.
Yes, because Africa is still yet to be totally be free. Mm-hmm. And some of the countries that have flag independence is still not totally independent. Mm-hmm. And then you have all the Francophone countries. I mean, some of them are not breaking away, like Niger and Burkina Faso and Mali and so on, by way of military coups. But we still see that Africa is yet to be free, even as Zambia, South Africa, is yet to be free. Mm-hmm. We want to see economic independence, and that is what we're moving forward to. We want economic independence for the whole of Africa. And until that time of having economic independence, we Africans are not free. And Africans in the whole diaspora and all of the world is yet to be free until all Africa is free and united.
Right, and we're just going to go to justice and equality in the wise mind, because, Bob Marley, sings this so eloquently, and a lot of people think these are the words of Robert Nesta Marley, but it's actually the words of His Imperial Majesty, and it's so poignant, that until the philosophy which holds one race superior and another inferior is finally and permanently discredited and abandoned, until they are no longer first and second class citizens of any nation, until the color of a man's skin is of no more significant than the color of his eyes, until the basic human rights are equally guaranteed to all without regard to race. Until that day, the dream of lasting peace and world citizenship and the rule of international morality will remain but a fleeting illusion to be pursued but never attained. Now, Bob Marley sang these words so powerfully. He claimed it because it was part of his passion. And of course, being a Rasta man, it's a proud moment to take the words of His Imperial Majesty and sing them. And I just said that a lot of people, maybe even to this day, still think those are the words, the original words of Bob Marley. So with this information going out there, this made a big difference, right, in terms of the word spreading about, this discrimination. Would you say?
Yes. Well, Their Majesty saw it fit in 1963 when he addressed the United Nations in New York. And this was what he basically placed at your doorstep, because it was a time when the civil rights movement and the human rights movement was active in the North America here. It was a time where you still had apartheid in Tanzania and what was South Africa, what you call now Zimbabwe, which was Rhodesia then,
right,
and other parts of Africa were fighting for liberation. People in the Caribbean, North and South and Central America, people were still being judged according to by their skin. So when Their Majesty came to visit the UN, he saw it very pertinent to make this a very interested speech in relation to how he saw that struggle that was taking place among African people here in North America and in other parts of Africa and in the Western Hemisphere overall. Right. So it was very poignant at the time, and very pertinent at the time as well, for him to make that speech that was so relevant to the cause of our people here in North America. We had Martin Luther King, who was marching, demonstrating. You had Malcolm X at the time, and so on, and many of the civil rights leaders, who some of them were eventually killed. But it's very, very important that this speech was very much on time, and it's still on time.
Oh, yes.
Because we look at what's going on in the world today, we look at what's going on in Israel today, and people are judged by the color of their skin, and so on. So people are still being judged by the color of their skin. Yes. There's still a matter of class, and you also the class and race. So class and race perspective, because people are being judged by the color of their skin and the color of their eyes.
Right. So once again, it says, until that day, the dream of lasting peace and world citizenship and the rule of international morality will be attained, but will remain but a fleeting illusion to be pursued and never attained, until bigotry and prejudice and malicious and inhuman self-interest have been replaced by understanding and tolerance and goodwill, until all Africans stand and speak as free beings, equal in the eyes of all men as they are in the eyes of heaven. Until that day, the African continent will not know peace. We Africans will fight if necessary, and we know that we shall win, as we are confident in the victory of good over evil. But as we approach Africa Day, and we celebrate African Liberation Month, as we approach Africa Day coming up on Saturday, and you just said it, we're still in the same predicament on the continent.
Yes.
Where do we go from here?
And
what
we're still in the same predicament in the Caribbean.
And
we're
in
still
the
in
Caribbean.
the same predicament in North America.
Yes.
Right? We talk about independence of North America. We talk about America being the most richest country in the world. But there's still discrimination taking place here in North America among the 50 million plus Africans who live here. Right? There's still discrimination taking place even in black countries, African countries like Jamaica and so on, where you have a 98% African population and so on, but you still have discrimination taking place among African people there.
Absolutely.
You still have discrimination taking place in Tanzania, South Africa today, right? Although Mandela, the ANC fought for independence, but today there are people of South Africa, people of Tanzania is in a worse state than it was 30 years ago because of not having economic independence. So until African people are able to achieve these things, then we'll be still in the position, and hence the reason that speech made by Their Majesty Haile Selassie that was put into the words and song by Robert Nesta Marley or Bob Marley, one of our most popular Rastafari brethren. We must say that this is a fleeting illusion, and it remains a fleeting illusion for most of African people living in the Western Hemisphere, living in places like Brazil, living in other parts of South and Central America. It is a fleeting illusion, as it
As you
is
said, to
as
be
we speak today,
pursued,
the
but never.
23rd of
Yeah.
yes, the
He said
2nd
to be.
of May.
I mean, to
Yes,
be pursued but never attained. Wow.
yes, yes.
But
But you see, it
yeah.
would never be attained. What one thing we had to understand is that until the what do you call the exploitation of African labor, the exploitation of African people, down-pressed people across the world, until we have the destruction of capitalism. Because as once we have capitalism, we're going to have racism. That is just one of our realities that we have to face.
Right.
And capitalism came into existence mainly because via the Industrial Revolution, and therefore, because of this, we have capitalism, right? And we have what you call classism. If you go to Nigeria today, you have a majority African people there, but you have what do you call the native people there are still suffering at the hands of the petty bourgeoisie. They're still suffering from the hands of the comprador bourgeois. So we had to understand that in order to destroy racism, we have to destroy capitalism.
He goes on to say in this chapter, those of you who are following, we're on page 78 now, Justice and Equality. We must speak out on major world issues, courageously, openly, and honestly, and in blunt terms of right and wrong. If we yield to blandishments or threats, if we compromise when no honorable compromise is possible, our influence will be sadly diminished and our prestige woefully prejudiced and weakened. Let us not deny our ideals or sacrifice our right to stand as the champions of the poor, the ignorant, and the oppressed everywhere.
Well, very, very, very pertinent, very, very poignant at this day, because most people will not open up their mouths to speak if it does not affect them.
Personally, right? Yeah.
And that is the selfishness that capitalism brings to us. We will not speak if it does not affect our neighbor, if it does not see our neighbor house on fire, or neighbor is being killed and dragged out of the house by by the forces that be, and we will not say anything because we think that it's not happening to us. So why should we speak? But humanity have a right to speak. We as the people have a right to open up our mouths and speak. When we see oppression, down-oppression taking place among other people, exploitation taking place. We see sex exploitation taking place, where our women are being sex exploited, where we see our brothers being oppressed. We need to speak, right? And that is one of the things we need. That is why we give support to the struggle against apartheid in Azania, South Africa, and in
election coming up pretty soon too, as well.
That is why we give support to the Palestinian struggle that is taking place now.
Right. As we speak, and this is the book that we're using for our Rootsology book club. It brings to mind in Child Month. I just want you to. It's a slight segue that in terms of reading. There are big issues now when it comes on to our young people reading. I grew up in a home where, my father in particular was very adamant about us reading. Even though we might get a toy for Christmas or for our birthdays, there was always a book along with that toy. Because you know how children are. You get a toy, in a couple of days it becomes boring. We don't even want to play with it. But he made sure that he supplied us with books. I'd like for you to mention, Raseku, how, because you're big. I mean, that's why you have a publishing company and you have a bookstore and so, because you're avid reader. But how can we possibly, as we come on to celebrating Africa Day on Saturday, how can we who are readers or understand the power of reading help our children? We had a reading day across the island about a week or two ago. I don't know how impacting it was. What can we say to our young people? Because that's going to help a lot in terms of their whole persona and everything, the reading. What are your thoughts on that as we have the Rootsology book club?
I think I grew up in a home similar to yours, where reading was very pertinent. Even though we got toys, but that's the reason why when we got toys, sometimes we dissected the toys. And so,
exactly.
And we dissected the toys, and our parents were a bit annoyed sometimes, but sometimes trying to you get them a train and they break down the train because you must look at the direction they're going. to see where probably they may become engineers or become something like that.
Right, yes.
So we don't comprehend that. But however, from trends should be when a woman is pregnant, the father and the mother should at least read to that child inside of the stomach.
Yes.
Right. This is a very, very important thing, right? And that is when we read for the child inside the stomach. Therefore, the child will come out with an interest in reading and have an interest in reading, right? Also, the most important thing about reading is we must allow our children to read anything.
Yes,
right?
important.
Whether it be a comic book, or anything.
It's a practice of reading that's important.
Right?
The practice of reading, yes,
right?
very
because
important.
They will get some kind of substance, they will get some kind of information, and so on. And then you could encourage them to read other things, whether it's history, politics, civil things about spirituality, whatever. But you got to encourage them to read basic things, even though sometimes parents see children reading comic books. And I remember growing up, and they didn't want you to read comic books because they know comic books ain't got nothing in it.
Yes.
But if children reading, even though with a comic book,
of reading.
Encourage them to read something.
Yes.
And therefore, you have them discuss it, what they got out of it. What they got out of it is important to know how they see it, what they understand when they read it, when they read that book, whatever book it was that they read.
Yes.
And that is important. So we had to encourage it by giving children. You have to encourage them by giving children books. For instance, you have children, you have grandchildren. You give them books about their heritage, books about their history, about little books about so they could understand who they are first and foremost from the toddler age.
Yeah.
So that is where we start. So once we start that and encourage them to read, and then and we read with them sometimes.
Right,
you have to
that's
read
it
with
too. Read with
so
them.
they could see. But if children don't see parents reading in a home, we don't expect. How can we expect them to read?
True.
If you have a home and you have 3 or 4 children in your home, right? Then they're not seeing their mother, they're not seeing their father reading. Then you don't expect them to be able to read because they're not seeing the example being
right.
set.
And when you tell them to read,
with what they not with what they hear, they go with what they see you do.
Yes. And when you tell them to read, and you're not reading, they're gonna come back and say, "Well, look, I don't see you reading. You're telling us to read, but I don't see you reading."
Exactly. Exactly. So even though with TVs and stuff we have now on cell phones and so on, we have to take time and say, "Hey, we have to take time and say, listen,
read together as a family.
We're gonna shut down the TV.
Lock off the phones.
We're gonna shut down the TV for an hour. We're gonna shut down take away the cell phone. No cell phone for an hour. No Facebook for an hour. No Instagram for an hour.
Right.
This is reading time.
Time.
Family reading time.
And allow them to also choose the books too, and we read along with them.
Let them choose the books, so they read it. Take them to the nearest bookstore near to you, or your nearest whatever selling books, and you have them choose a book for themselves.
Yes.
So you see you choosing a book, and you tell them go ahead and you choose a book.
Right, and then you can have such
and
dynamic.
You could get them and say, don't choose a book for no more than $3,000 Jamaican dollars. Don't choose a book, but choose a book within that range, and let them choose a book, and then we go home and read, and then we all tell the story. We all discuss what we got from the story after we finish reading.
And that's so important, the discussion time is very important, because it gives them a chance to articulate.
You got to make sure that people understand, people comprehend what they read.
Right, yeah. It can be so fun, because a lot of times, especially now where there's so much competition with regards to social media, I mean, anywhere you go, you experience that too. If you go to a restaurant, if you even see 2 people on a date or whatever, everybody's head is down on their phones.
Everybody's down in whether it's Facebook, Instagram, or whatever media, and so on, right? TikTok, whatever. But we have to make sure that reading is important. We have people who can't read.
Yes.
There's a lot of people who can't read, so we need to also have literacy programs.
Absolutely,
because you think that people could read and they can't read. So you have to have literacy programs for encouraging our communities, because sometimes reading could save your life. Somebody was telling me they was taking a child somewhere coming from a school. The child is 12 or 13 years old. The child is still in fourth grade or 4th standard in the Caribbean, and the child didn't see the word stop at that age, 13 years old, and don't know what stop. They say to stop.
Wow.
So that could mean your life.
Life, yeah, matter of life or death. Yeah, yeah.
Your life could depend on reading.
Mm-hmm.
So
Okay.
it's very pertinent, very, very crucial,
Very.
it's very, very, very important that we encourage our children to read. Don't take it for granted.
Yes.
That you can't read.
True.
And like for instance, like a lot of times they give these children multiple choices and so on, and they just choosing by wits. But we have to encourage them to read. You read a book, you write an essay, write something how you understand about the first chapter, the second chapter, and so on.
Yes.
And that is what we have to do.
Absolutely.
If we want to have a reading public, if we want to have the children to continue to read, we must be able to. They must be able to encourage them. We have to encourage them to read from the cradle to the grave.
Yeah, it's important, very important. Raseko, I want to say thank you so much. We're out of time, but I had to have this program in this week in particular as we enter Africa Day.
Yes.
Are you doing anything in particular at your place of business on Saturday?
No, we're not doing anything this year because we just rebuilt. Rebuilding back all these things.
Yes.
But we be tuning in with what's going on in the community, and they celebrate African liberation here. We have different organizations that celebrate African liberation here, so we give our support in different areas, and and so on. So we are thankful to be here, and we're glad that you continue to contribute to the cause of African union and African liberty and African liberation.
Right.
And we say Africa must be free and united. Unless Africa is free and united, we in the Caribbean, we in what you call it, the sixth region, we in Africa, we will not be free until all Africa is free and united.
Thank you, my brother. Thank you so much. And we just want to also mention that today is Kingston Night Market. If you need a book that we're reading, you can check iNation. He's right at the gate, right at the beginning there. And iNation has the book we're reading now. And also, Brother Miguel Lorne down at Church Street, you can get the book there as well. And, all sorts of other interesting books, man. I have a wonderful library at home, and it's just because of collecting books over the years, over the time. Thank you, my brother. Okay, he left. All right, wonderful. Okay, so it's 4 minutes to the hour of 11 o'clock. Thanks again. You can make your comments and ask your questions on the Facebook page for Rootsology. And we are going to take a break before we go into Mecri Talk Tuesday with Jeffrey Tavares. Soon come.
Denise, Isis Miller with Rootsology, which is the